could we vaporize Matt and all sort of inherit Matt's knowledge? Like,
Only if
does
you're
this
nanny
work with
bot.
anyone? Why would you waste such a great invention on just random Earth moms? Like, why wouldn't they kidnap, the greatest minds and then vaporize those and turn those into the nanny bots?
Einstein couldn't change a diaper.
Ask about Illuminati, since the charting of B-text. Is it Disney mind control? Is this MK Ultra Deluxe? Occult Disney, we go from real to real. Occult Disney, Bohemian Grove and no more real. Occult Disney, ask about Illuminati. Occult Disney, we teach occult to everybody. Occult Disney, the wish upon a star. Occult Disney, you know not to travel far. Oh, Occult Disney, the new brand Pinocchio. Yeah, yeah. Occult Disney, it's a boss overflow. Occult Disney, please enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to the Occult Disney podcast, where we check out all the planets of the solar system to see if they need moms or not, and the secrets behind why they need moms or not. This is Matt here. Over there, it's the Paranoid American. What's up? I just said paranoid really weirdly.
That's okay. That's the best way to say it is weird. And we also have a returning guest, maybe the first two-time guest, Jamie Hanshaw from Out of This World podcast, Weird Stuff Magazine, all kinds of other stuff. Let's just do plugs up front. Tell people where they can go and follow you while they're listening to us.
Okay. Jay's Analysis is where my books are sold in the shop. I also have a channel on YouTube. You can look up by my name, Jamie Hanshaw, and Out of This World. And I have a channel on Rockfin also. You can look me up just by my name, where we talk about occult, like Hogwarts style Defense Against the Dark Arts stuff.
All right, very groovy. Yeah. I got to ask people when they make requests on movies, though, why? Because this one, as I was looking at my production, it is considered to be the fourth largest financial Hollywood bomb in history, which is kind of amazing.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just real quick on the deets, 150 million budget, 39 box office. So no one ate lunch on this one, or everyone ate lunch. I forget how these expressions work. They ate a shark sandwich. That's what they did. Spinal Tap shark sandwich.
They got cooked in the skibbity toilet.
Yeah. No, it wasn't that bad. I didn't think.
Oh, financially is what I'm saying.
Okay.
There were things about the movie. There's things I liked. There's things I didn't. 9-year-old mocap Seth Green may start to live in my nightmares, but yeah.
Oh, no. That is so funny you said that. Well, I have a special affinity with this movie because I knew of it before it actually came out. So several years ago, back in 2010, 2011, we were invited to work on a documentary with Dan Fogler, who plays Gribble in the movie in Mars Needs Moms, right? And so he was making his own documentary called Don Peyote, about his awakening to like conspiracy life and going through the trip of like trying to be an entertainer, trying to live in New York City, trying to be Jewish, and also waking up to all of these like conspiracy theories. So on the side, he was making this documentary of his life, and we go to his, set or his house, and we're explaining about Disney, and I have in my Weird Stuff book like this chart of all of these movies I have listed, and I said, what does all these movies have in common? And the commonality was they always killed the mother. So like Bambi, I mean, the list is so long if you think about it, and now that I've like unlocked that part of your brain, you're like, why do they always like kill the mother? So I was talking about Disney because he was like, oh, what do you do? And I said, well, we do a lot of critique of, pop culture and Disney. He's like, oh, I'm making a Disney movie right now. And I said, oh, okay, what's it about? And what's it called? And he said, Mars Needs Moms. And I was like, another like movie about motherhood and you know, the female cycle, which we write about in Disney is a lot of times like handicapped in the maternal cycle. So you have your virgin and your crone a lot in classic Disney, but like the mom is a lot of times taken out, or she's replaced by wicked stepmother or witch or something else. So yeah, that's how I first ever heard of this movie. So there's some lore for you guys.
When we usually talk about a very similar principle that we didn't create this name, but the Disney proxy, which is essentially that you separate the protagonist from an authority figure. Often it's the mom. You separate them, and then you throw in the sidekick, and the sidekick represents something that supplants your mom. And when I say your mom, I mean you as the viewer when you're watching this, especially if you're 5 or 6 or 7. You actually identify this new character as an actual authority figure in real life because you're still sort of determining the difference between real and fake. And if real mom and dad are out of the room because they're, doing laundry or taxes, then this sort of like proxy becomes your actual mom for the next hour or two, which probably does a significant impact on your small budding brain. And this one is kind of weird because yes, the protagonist gets separated from the mom, but in this one, the mom is the one that gets kidnapped. And usually in Disney, it's the kid that gets kidnapped and has to find their way back to the parents, or the parents are finding their way back to him. This one does sort of invert that a little bit.
A little bit. He still crawls on the spaceship and he's being taken against his will. So
right. Well, on the surface, it's just kind of like a tale of gratitude towards all the things that your mom does for you, because in the opening scenes she's a good mom, and so these Martians, this matriarchy of Martians is scanning the universe looking for good mothers to program their nanny bots, right? And so she gets chosen because she is a good mom, and the whole plot ensues where he has to go rescue her, but I couldn't figure out if this had a pro-matriarchy or anti-matriarchy message. It's kind of interesting. The father was the absent one in this Disney movie.
A little hookish.
Yeah, but I mean, a massive storm outside of your airport and the airplane is not going anywhere. I mean, what can you do,
Right, but he had some event, and dad was supposed to be there for the event. I mean,
I smell the flavor.
Like
yeah, for sure.
Hook a little bit. And I would forgive most people listening if they haven't actually seen this movie, because I didn't even. It must have just come out and went by when I was, in like a drunken stupor at this.
What was happening in 2011? I don't know. We didn't go see Martian.
I was getting ready for the end of the Mayan calendar, so I think that. and actually, this was when I was starting on my comic series, because I launched in 2012. So I was deep into MK Ultra and Project Monarch research at this point. I think I would have enjoyed this movie, but so you kind of summarized the plot already. The basic premise is that Mars needs moms, literally, because they have this ultra matriarchal society, and I think that might even be misconstruing it, but it's run exclusively by women, and they kidnap human mothers that I guess they're good moms, but the only time they quantify what a good mom is to them, it's that the kids do what they say. So as long as mom controls its behavior.
Kind of felt like a no good deed goes unpunished sort of message under the surface, which was a little weird.
You always want to leave a little room for improvement for that reason. And so they steal moms, and then they point this weird beam at them. So when the sun rises on Mars, it vaporizes the mom. And in this process, it confers all of her mommy knowledge onto the rest of these alien nanny bots. And the nanny bots take care of the children. And the dads are discarded because they like to hug and dance too much. And that's basically the premise of the movie. They steal this kid's mom to vaporize her and use her to train a nanny bot to just keep this civilization on Mars going.
Right. Did you notice when he notices that they're abducting mom, so he does a stowaway on the ship to Mars. It does a hyper jump because the trip is very fast. It's almost instantaneous once he gets out of the atmosphere, and then they go through a wormhole, and then they're instantly landing on Mars. So they've got some wormhole technology up there on Mars.
They play a
Yeah,
little fast and loose with the physics in this one.
I
Yeah.
guess it fits with the Martian technology of having no color, but the fact that it was a colorless warp blast, I was like, oh, come on, give me a psychedelic effect, which would obviously key the psychedelic alien lady would love that. So I get it.
That part I would love to understand a little bit more, because it doesn't make sense that they would be devoid of color. There's this weird B plot where there's a hippie alien that saw some sort of a 1970s hippie TV show and is now obsessed with introducing color, and she's like tagging and spray painting color all over the place. But if you were an advanced civilization that had all this technology, just through burning and incinerating different materials and chemical reactions, you would see all these brilliant colors all the time. They don't really explain why is there no color allowed.
Well, I think they're insinuating is that the split between the male and female dynamic has taken all of the color from the world, because they throw the males down the trash chute, right? And they've broken up the Martian nuclear family. And so all the males live this very primal existence in the trash layer.
In the man cave.
Yeah. Yes, literally they live in like the man dungeon down there. And so in their way they have developed this like tribal empathy, whereas above the women live a very like structured, robotic, disciplined, colorless existence.
That's a good point, because the males that live in this trash dungeon, they have all this colorful clothing on, and all these, like, they're the ones that wear color, while the matriarchy above it's all just gray and mech stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all the left brain, right brain stuff, which sometimes like male, female stuff, and they seem to be kind of flipping that, which that's kind of fun, because usually it's like in any given thing, the manic pixie dream girl thing, which we have here in alien form, but more creative and stuff. And then the dad is the colorless guy. He's stuck at the airport in the movie, but he's colorless on Earth, but the men on Mars are colorful. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but a little bit of an inversion.
Well, there's something weird on this one where I feel like it's unintentional, but this is the most anti-woke Disney movie in modern history that I've ever seen, because the implication is that you need a nuclear family. You need a mom and a dad. You can't just have a mom and you can't just have a dad. You have to have both. And there's lots of reviews on this movie that are basically saying, this is violence. This is an all-out on anyone that doesn't believe in nuclear family.
This is a not to do some of my production stuff. It is and it isn't a Disney movie. It's another one of those. So this comes from Robert Zemeckis's, motion capture stuff, which is Light Image Movers Digital. They made 2 films. This one, I think the other one actually was, Christmas Carol. So the only thing that this actual production company did was A Christmas Carol on this one. And after this, the bottom fell out because, fourth. By the way, I qualified it by saying 4th largest Hollywood bomb in history financially. It actually says 4th largest without saying Hollywood. So a big qualifier there. Another thing that's kind of interesting for the production is this comes from, I'm not going to say, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but I've been reading his stuff for 40 years. Berkeley Breathed. I don't really know how to say his name because he's a writer, right? You don't hear his name said much. In the 80s, he did the Bloom County comic strip, which I read. And as a 8-year-old in the 80s, first learned about Donald Trump from reading about him in the Bloom County comic strip in the 80s. He's turned into a cat at one point. Um, but anyway, after that strip, he, you know, tried some other stuff. This was kind of like, a children's book, which was supposed to be quirky and weird, like his comic strips was the basic vibe. He's kind of riffing on the title of the, I think it's 1967 film Mars Needs Women. So, a little bit of a pop culture joke, kind of going for that style. So this did start from kind of a surrealist cartoonist's, thing. And then Robert Zemeckis' weird motion capture obsessions. I don't believe he directed this one. Who directed this one? Well, I won't tell you now because I accidentally closed the page, but I'll get back to that soon.
You were going to say something about the anti-woke nature of this, Jamie?
Well, this movie deals a lot with inversion of roles and what happens like when you remove the father from the household in the beginning is that she's taking on the disciplinarian and the caretaker role. So this puts her out of like sweet mom into, stern father. And then they also invert these, well, like as in it would usually be the men who would have an army, right? Or a authoritarian type of structure. Not the women are not usually typically like that. Also with the Key, I think was her name. She ended up being the more of the action hero than Gribble.
Right, yeah, that's a great point. Gribble was sort of a facade. Everything that he says is kind of a lie and created. But I get the idea that he's lying to himself just as much as he's lying to anyone else. He talks about that he was in Reagan's secret space astronaut program and that he was fighting space communism and that Mars was communist and that's why it's called the Red Planet. I loved all of that dialogue and I wonder that it sounds like something that he constructed around himself.
Well, Gribble is interesting because he's an Arrested Development character. I mean, he's stuck in whenever he was put on Mars, what, a 10-year-old boy to a 12-year-old boy. So now he's a grown man with still that type of psychology because he's only had his imagination to raise him and all of his little gadgets and things.
And he just keeps talking about 1980s, early 1990s pop culture stuff, Pop Tarts. Like everything that he mentions, it kind of has like a Ready Player One quality to it.
So he's about the same mentality as the boy.
Oh, yeah, good point. So they can relate a little bit.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Disney kind of tried a few strains of this again. A year later, they do another Mars movie, John Carter. I think it's a pretty good movie myself, but that was like, I think maybe even that might be 1, 2, or 3 on the flop list. Like did even worse than this. And then you go 3 years later, and we have Guardians of the Galaxy with kind of the same setup as a Gribble, where Star-Lord was taken from his family and has grown to adulthood amongst the aliens and, hasn't talked to another human in 20-something years. Gribble, it seems, well, it's 80s, at least 25 years, If he at least developed past mullet, so good for him on that. But
Well, you can't have an occult show without talking about the Aeon of Horus, which is Mars, or warfare, which is what Crowley thought that we would be coming into in this time. So you can look at all the Mars movies, like you said. John Carpenter was that one.
John Carter.
John Carter, yeah. And then you've got, Elon wanting to go to Mars and stuff like that. So this is definitely Aeon of Horus stuff, which is about the crowned and conquering child and the mentalities of how children act. So that's another layer we can put on Gribble and the other character. I forget the little boy's name. He is Seth Rowe. That's so crazy. Seth Green, I mean.
Not the voice. But did you guys get to the very end of the movie?
Yeah,
where they're doing the credits and you can see them doing the mocap.
And I was like, this looks like the worst time making a movie ever. The 6 months of this looks like hell. Which, I mean, that made me like appreciate their acting because everyone
looks like Hellraiser.
I know, and they're in this giant room with no features and they're supposed to be fun. And I was like, oh, this looks like that. Like, I actually kind of like the, watching Martian society change montage. That's where I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to stick with the credits. And the production stuff on this is not that in depth, so that was actually kind of really helpful to figure out like how they did it, and it was just depressing. But yeah, and you would actually hear Seth Green's voice. I was worried watching the movie. They're not pitch shifting him up, I hope, and they're not. They did get a kid to do the voice. I think they just needed a grown actor to be on set all day. And if you only need the kid's voice, then it would be insane to also have the kid on set.
I had that same thought. I was wondering, did they just pitch shift the voice? So I'm glad you cleared that up for me.
I didn't clear that up till after the movie. So no, I'm going to double down. Like, this and Christmas Carol are kind of like the poster children movies for the Uncanny Valley. And that shot at the end where they do before the end credits, where it just goes right on Milo's face in the end, and it looks 80% like a 9-year-old Seth Green. I'm like, that's the one I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's too Uncanny Valley or something.
Yeah, right? Gribble. I mean, that's the thing with the whole point of the Uncanny Valley is I look at Gribble, I'm like, oh, they did a pretty good job, but I'm still thinking they did a pretty good job. And the vibe was fun. It was kind of like they took Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi from the Blues Brothers, just kind of smushed them together. Real Dan Aykroyd, not his Blues Brother persona.
Yeah, honestly, Gribble is my favorite character in this, even though he shows up as maybe the closest thing we get to a wise old man archetype.
He's
even
kind of
though
blue if we're looking through our
same level as the protag.
I was definitely thinking some Jungle Book. He's got a Baloo vibe. Like, come on, follow with me.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a Baloo vibe to him.
Definitely. He's like a steampunk hacker.
Well, right? In his own mind, I think he
his aesthetic is very like, steampunky, and his little companion robot thing.
I just have to ask if you guys have any idea on this. I couldn't figure out, what does he eat? What is Gribble eating to keep him his size in Mars as a stowaway this entire time?
Probably what came down the trash.
Martian hatchlings?
But yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, what's Martian trash? It's not like they're eating pizza and throwing it out.
He ate baby boy Martians.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the implication, right? Is he was eating these discarded alien fetuses. Feti?
Well, the gravity is different there, so he needed the bulk to not float away.
Well, yeah, and he's got all these little quirky inventions as well. But again, they aren't as impressive as he makes them out to seem. I don't know. I like him so much because he's all flaws, but somehow he's keeping it together, and he ends up saving everybody. He saves the kid, he saved the kid's mom, and he does it selflessly. He even lets the kid take credit for saving his mom, even though he's really the one that did it. And he's like, no, you did it, bro. You did it. Like, you can have this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was doing fine till that cheap helmet shattered.
Oh, yeah.
Hit that thing with a dime, it's gonna break. But he's also, another trope is he gets two major sequences of man in the chair, right? And I'm trying to remember when man in the chair became a thing. Like
you mean like Clockwork Orange man in the chair?
Oh, not that chair. No, where you got the guy back at home base on the computer, like helping, like a Mission Impossible thing. Simon Pegg, Tom Cruise,
Tom Arnold in True Lies. There's a million of them.
Yeah. And I was kind of wondering when that
Penny Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, because I feel like if you go all the way back to the 60s, James Bond never gets a man in the chair because the technology is not really there yet.
He's got Q.
What about like The Prisoner? Is there a man in the chair in that? Or...
Oh, that's a deep rabbit hole, and I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
No, that's I love that show, but I'm thinking the conversation is sort of being like now. Coppola's movie is a big thing in the 70s, where like, surveillance technology is like the plot, and I was wondering if that's the seed of, because here it's just like, this is man in the chair stuff. That's how it rolls.
Mm-hmm. Well, above Martian, where the women live, is total surveillance. Police state.
Right.
And so the creative one, Key, I think is her name, she gets programmed, if I recall, by the television of Earth, of like the 60s and the Flower Children and that era of like acid. So she gets clips of that era of TV shows, and that like creates her creative thinking. She becomes like a little Banksy almost, right? Tagging up the above ground with her murals, her rainbow murals that you were talking about.
Yeah, she catches a rogue broadcast of an American television show. I think it's either from the 70s or it's themed as though it's from the late 60s, early 70s, and it's called Freaks on Our Street. And if I understand what I was watching, and I've got my own bias, but if I understand the small clip of what she's seeing is that these 2 or 3 hippies dose a couple of cops, and then the cops end up spray painting their own police van. And like, oh man, look at these cool colors, you know, that's a chamomile or something. And then it zooms out and it shows these Freak Brothers kind of I assume it's like a Freak Brothers nod. They're laughing at these cops that they just dosed, and they're going, yeah, flower power, man, it's gonna change the world, man. And that's what Key ends up picking up on. She picks up on this counterculture of dosing the authority figures and having them destroy their own authority somehow by opening up their mind. I know I'm reading a little bit into that, but it was such a weird B plot that I'm still trying to put together.
I definitely want to watch Freaks in the Street.
That sounds like an awesome show. Well, even her slang and stuff, she's talking in Earth, groovy, and she even says turn in, tune in, drop out at one point, which is a Timothy Leary.
Oh, I think I wrote down. Oh, what was the way that she says it was actually.
She does a weird explanation of it. Yeah.
Well, so she was asking a question as soon as she notices that there's this human child that she's making contact with here in Mars. The first things that she asks, like, "Oh my God, you're a human. What do you turn on? How do you tune in? What do you drop out of?" Like, she wants to understand how important, but yeah, she's just reciting a Timothy Leary quote back to this kid. He doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I did like how because Gribble stuck in the 80s. All his references are from the 80s. It's bad, right? And then near the end of the movie, Milo says something like super coded to aughts or whatever, right? So they're very much saying like, here's 3 different views of culture, which I don't even know what that means really saying it, but it's there.
That's a very good point.
I made a list of the way that this kid quantifies what his mom is, and I just thought this because this is the writers as well putting this in there, either what they think or what they think this protagonist is thinking, therefore the audience. But the way he defines his mom is the lady that washes his clothes, the lady that vacuums the house, the lady that tucks him in at night. And I was just wondering, this is him trying to describe to these male aliens, where's my mom? Does he not know how to describe her physically, or it's a weird way of going through? And then he starts getting a little bit deeper into this later in the movie. It says that the mom's the one that takes care of him, tells him what to do, which is that authoritative figure that you were talking about, Jamie. Like, the dad is out of the picture, at least for the context of this movie. So she also tells him what to do. She's kind. She takes him to Disneyland because you have to slip in, like that. That's the ultimate reward, is to, pay money to Disney. That she reads to me, she makes me hot chocolate, and she puts bandages on my cuts. And this is like exactly how he's quantifying his mom to this alien race.
Mm-hmm.
Gribble will endanger a child as much as he wants to. I'll tell a cute story just because my mom. It's one of those things where my mom will never let me forget about. It was when I was 2 or 3 years old. So I said that speech to her in about 5 words. You work, you don't play. Apparently, I said that when I was 2 years old. And
Working. Yeah.
You work,
well,
actually. You don't play.
There's some truth to that in the movie, because they do have a lot of themes of like domestic labor, and because when we get to the end, the matriarch Martian lady has this meltdown about chores and how the men never help do anything. Do you remember that? So you've got
The supervisor is what her nickname is in this.
Yeah, the supervisor. And so when he's describing all of these things about his mom, you're right. It was all just chores and things that she does for him. So that was part of his, mental advancement, is to realize, oh, she's actually also a person, and not just something that serves me, right?
But we're watching him in real time figure that out for himself,
Mhm.
which is, I don't know, I wonder how many kids are leaving the movie theater like, I love you, Mom, like I didn't understand. Thank you, Disney, for explaining this like family dynamic to me in a way that was foreign.
It's very
Nobody. Apparently, they all went
self-aware.
to see Battle Los Angeles, which also was released this day.
And I wonder, because Jamie, you kind of asked the question: is this patriarchy? Is it pro matriarchy, anti matriarchy? What do you think? Do you like? How does it come across to you in this movie?
Actually, very balanced, because so once Key and Gribble hook up, they find the caves of the true Martians before the males and females were split up. So it was a very colorful place. It reminded you of like the caves in Snow White with all the glittering jewels in the walls and stuff like that. And they find this icon, really glowing icon of a family, the mom and the dad and the child. And they're like, this is how Martians used to live before the great schism of male and female.
I almost want to see that movie. I want to see the movie in which the first old crone alien Mars lady decided, like, this is war. We are now going to throw you into the garbage, and if we have any male children, we're also throwing them into the garbage. It seems like there had to have been some sort of a violent uprising in their past, because even towards the end, Gribble faces a literal firing squad. Like he is going to get shot and die in this Disney movie, which maybe this the first firing squad in any Disney animated movie we've seen so far. I think it might be.
Well, they literally killed his mom right in front of him.
Well, if I understand correctly, they vaporized his mom in front of him, but it was no different than how they vaporize any other mom when they turn them into these nanny bots, or when they've just lost their use for the mom. They just put them in this glass bubble with, I'm going to simplify it, like a big magnifying glass, so the sun comes up and it zaps them. But I don't think that they try to kill Gribble's mom in front of him intentionally as any sort of punishment or threat. It was just, that's just how we do things around here.
They didn't know he was watching. Yeah.
So we got a flower child dream underneath where the guys live. We've got basically Star Wars on the surface with even less color, because there was one set I was like, that looks like the Star Destroyer when they're doing the prison thing. I'm like, this feels like the Death Star thing from the first movie, things like that. I do wonder if Disney was just like kind of getting that itch for Star Wars. You know, they're about to buy it in a year or two. So, and they've been trying to get the boy audience, which Mars Needs Moms is not the best title for that, but boy protagonist, here's some Star Wars looking stuff for you. But I was working back to the bubble, and I was like, well, that's not really Star Wars looking. I was like, that does seem like nightmare fuel. It's like a dolly painting, like doesn't quite make sense. But in this case, dolly paintings are usually not like directly threatening, where obviously your mom being hooked up in the machine get fried is like like a Kafka story or something. There's one Kafka short story about like a this giant execution machine that rips you apart through like velvet or something, something like that, just some surrealistic nightmare. And I thought the basically execution, because they're killing mom for her mom extract or whatever, right? So I was like, what that is a notable image. Like that's the image from this movie I'm going to remember like in a few months when I've forgotten everything else.
Well, I want to understand that technology too. Like, could we vaporize Matt and all sort of inherit Matt's knowledge? Like,
only
does this work with anyone? Why would you waste such a great invention on just random Earth moms? Like, why wouldn't they kidnap, the greatest minds and then vaporize those and turn those into the nanny bots?
Einstein couldn't change a diaper.
Well, yeah, that device wasn't just a death machine or a torture thing. It transferred your consciousness into a bot, but only certain parts of it, right? Only like the robotic caretaking parts.
Yeah, to me, so this is kind of like, does the transporter kill you in Star Trek sort of question, but the vibe I was getting was mom is going to be dead and it's just using, it's like energy vampire stuff going on or something, right? I do my Twilight Zone podcast. We just did Queen of the Nile, where it's like 1960s and Cleopatra's still around. She looks 38, and she just like man traps people, poisons them, and then brings out her scarab to suck their life energy away. That kind of thing.
Well, this feels like the AI version of transhumanism, where it's not necessarily you do not get the impression that mom is elevating to some new higher consciousness, or that now there's a whole bunch of bots that have mom consciousness in them. Like you were kind of saying, they just kind of get trained on the physical memory, and sort of just like the workload gets transferred, so now they can vacuum and change the diapers and all this stuff without the love component, because none of the aliens understand love, which is probably the other most tired trope in these Disney movies, or in any movies where humans interact with some other species. And that's what makes us unique, because we kind of suck at everything else, but we're like, oh, we got this love thing.
Well, yeah, so even the nanny bots is something that has to be replenished because they overwork them. And so there's some kind of metaphor for, mom is a woman too that needs care and rest just like anybody else in the family.
Don't they say it's a 1-to-1 ratio? A nanny bot can take care of one Martian, and then they're no good anymore.
Yeah, they get expended after the nanny bot takes care of one human child or one alien child. Then they just toss them, and they need another mom, which also sounds like you would have certain vintages, right? Like like one wave of nanny bots are going to be objectively better or worse than the next wave because they're taking them from different moms.
And that means we know you need at least, let's say this is the only part of Martian civilization. You need what, 10,000 moms a year, probably. That a few hundred. I guess you can disappear a few hundred people a year, which is horrible, but
they didn't really say what actually Martian civilization was for after the schism. Like all the women, it looked like just joined the army, but there was no opponent, and there was the only thing they do is just procreate more females.
I mean, it seems like they were slowly eradicating females of other planets. I mean, this is the slow route there, but
okay, good point.
Or at least all the good ones, right? Maybe they were trying to weaken the human race by taking all the best of the moms, taking their abilities, using them to raise their own progeny, and then kill that mom, so that now the Earth is just like over time gets crappier and crappier parents because they keep disappearing.
Ooh, the long game. There we go.
Which does sound like maybe a traditional matriarchy, because my limited knowledge, if you get like on classical matriarchy, I'm thinking of Frasier Golden Bough style, where matriarchy doesn't necessarily mean that women run the show. It just means that power is transferred through like the women. Like, instead of a patriarchy where everything is nepotism, where if your dad did something, then you get to do his thing, and he passes it down. In a matriarchy, since it goes down through the females, this is supposed to invite outsiders and merit, and it's almost been compared as a meritocracy versus straight up nepotism. But I don't know if we see that here, because there's no one fighting against the alien women, right? Like, who are their natural enemies?
Right.
Just the men?
Oh,
harsh,
yeah.
unforgiving landscape.
They have to be in military form in case the men decide to rise up, and I don't know.
And just On my own observation, the men in this movie are nowhere near the level of rising up. They seem pretty content.
Yeah. They even got dreadlocks.
It's not ideal, but there's not a rebel army of men. They're not arming up. They're not there's not like a secret faction. You just go down and they're just like, hey, we love it here. We're dancing and we're hugging and we're singing and no one's bothering us. That's kind of the entire premise of it.
While we're looking at inversions, I guess that's kind of a reverse time machine, you know, where now you got the Eloi living underground and the Morlocks are kind of above ground, you know. So the Morlocks are now shiny and clean. The Eloi are now dirty and weird. When they first go in that cave, they do seem wonderfully alien, by the way. And yeah, it was like turning the Predator into a plush toy or something is what they kind of look like to me. Or what's another thing I wrote?
Time Machine vibes. It definitely felt aesthetically, it looked like Time Machine a bit.
Yeah, she had an interesting figure. He did, and all the Martian girls have that big rump shape, like in The Incredibles, the mom.
Oh, right.
Right.
With horse legs, like they had
yes,
this
Baphomet
legs.
Yeah.
Is that why I thought Holly Hunter was doing the voice and then had to look and oh no, it's Joan Cusack.
But so yeah, she's got the back jointed legs like some kind of goat or a fawn or an animal would have. And I don't know if y'all remember that music video E.T. with Katy Perry and Kanye West about Mars and E.T. extraterrestrials.
I'm blanking on it a little bit.
I can't remember.
Look that one up. This is your homework for tonight, and go watch E.T. by Katy Perry and Kanye West. But in that video, Katy Perry has the lower half of her body is the animal with the animal legs. So back in the day, we were all reading into that, like, oh, this is Baphomet and stuff like that. But it could also be there is going to be some cross-species love in this because Gribble and Key fall in love. So maybe in the future on Mars, there's going to be an Earth DNA introduction element. What do you think?
Well, again, this is like this weird, unintentional, anti-woke premise for a Disney movie, but it's almost implying that gender conformity is more important than conforming to your own species. Mm-hmm. That as long as a male and a female get together, that's the only equation that really matters amongst the context of everything else going on.
Yeah, because the females are all together and there is no love. None of them love each other. And underneath, the dudes are all partying and having a good time, but there is no love. Mars has no love. To be alone is without the crazy love thing. That is Milo's line.
That's interesting because the males, even though they have the love, they don't have any semblance of responsibility or like structure or cleanliness or, discipline, basically anything that keeps things running in a smooth way, which the females have, but it's extreme. Right? So they're both
do they make sure that the males even stay alive? Like, why not vaporize the males entirely?
They're not that cruel.
And how does procreation
now
work?
You can't make it. I thought we were doing like Brave New World stuff, centrifugal bumble puppy, all that,
Is this all artificial insemination in this world of the Mars aliens?
I
assume they like go cruising down the trash pile and pick one out when they want one.
They grow out of the ground like potatoes, right?
And Cabbage Patch Kids, yeah.
Yeah, some are boys and some are girls, so they can't really stop it. So
here's a question just on my viewing. So before I saw the actual filming at the end, it was like, oh my god, that looks like a bad time. I read that they spent a day, the actors just spent a day sitting around making up words, and then they compiled what they thought sounded good into like an alien language. Now, the way I watched the movie, when they were doing the alien language, it was just an alien language. There were no subtitles or anything. Did I watch
Same.
it?
No, yeah, I tried a few different captions out, and none of them showed what they were actually saying. So I think that was intentional.
Yeah, it's interesting they do that for a kids film. Like I said, in Japan, I never see animated films because they never show them with English or with Japanese subtitles. They're just gonna be dubbed, right? Because they're like, kids don't want to deal with that. So just throwing a weird gibberish at them with no subtitles might be off-putting. I think it's fun. I watched Galaxy Quest with a Thermidian track on once. Watched the whole movie.
This movie also ends with an alien baby peeing on the supervisor's face. I just wanted to point that out too. I think that might be another first in Disney history. I don't think we've actually seen that happen.
Suggested before, but we've never seen it quite that literally and directly. I mean, you get a nice 2-second stream of urine into that lady's face.
Well, I thought they were pretty fair to the supervisor if she was the one that caused the schism, because she was the one that had the rant about how it was before, how they had to do everything and the males didn't help. And then she's the one changing the diaper now and it pees in her face. Yeah.
Isn't that what happens anyway, though? Because if they sort of exile all the males, then they still have to do all the work.
Right. But only for half of the population.
Oh, that's a good point, because it would only be the male alien baby that would pee on her face. It wouldn't be the
right,
female
because
alien
girls
baby.
can't do that.
So she's kind of having to face, quite literally, the exact thing that she was complaining about.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it when she's like, no, don't change things back. I hated that stuff. You know, that's why I did all these horrible things to make this happen. Sacrifices were made. I made a utopia for myself. So,
well, her role as the old crone, too, kind of makes sense that she would hate babies, because she herself cannot have children, which is what makes her have so much contempt for this. At least that's the crone archetype, right? So that's perfect that her interacting with a baby, there's nothing good that could ever come of that, because she is the crone.
Yeah, and that scene is very down with the matriarchy of Mars.
I was reading a few of the modern reviews of this movie over like the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. The best short description I heard was, it's a J.D. Vance fever dream. That's what this movie is.
That's funny. Well, the rising sun is what kills the mom when her consciousness is transferred into the nanny bot. And occult, esoterically, the sun would be the male and the moon is the female, and the sun is the solar phallic symbol. So that is also killing the female in this movie.
Great point. Yeah, the male energy disintegrates the feminine energy. Like literally, it vaporizes her. So I guess that's like the male being like the solvent, right? Solve, and then the female's kind of like the coagulant, the coagula. So you've got like the as above, the sun rising above, and then sort of, dissolving her back into the earth. Or I get, what happens to the actual body? It does. I mean, not Earth, right? Mars. She goes back into the Mars.
Yeah, the dust of Mars is made from moms.
Of course, we have the actual sun also rising to become his, Disney action hero thing and take charge of the situation. So you could also parallel that if you wanted to.
Good point. He's the man of the house now that his dad is absent in this adventure.
Right, because when they go home, they're like, oh, what happened this weekend? They're like, nothing. It's like, well, technically, you just had one of the more fantastical experiences in human existence, and now you're going to keep that to yourself, Like,
I feel like it's not a happy household that they both know that we need to keep this from Dad. Dad will not react well if we tell him that we went to Mars again.
Again.
Daddy doesn't like that. Or maybe... he just doesn't have the mental fortitude to accept such a fantastical possibility. He'd be like, "You guys are crazy." They don't trust Dad with the information of the truth.
I guess
And
another
that's
thing
how
is,
this whole problem started.
there's a certain point where people, or many people at least, their parents become like people, just other people, and I mean, they're still your parents, but you understand them as real people. You don't when you're a kid, you understand them how Milo is explaining it, right? Which is a very juvenile, childish way to do that. By the end of the movie, I think he at least understands that his mom is a real person now, but Dad is still kind of a caricature that we're not going to tell this stuff to.
It gave me, what was it? Mary Poppins is the other Disney movie that comes to mind about immediate gaslighting, when something completely fantastical happens and then you go and try and talk about it again, and the people that were there all say, no, that never happened. No, that none of that's true. That the only other movie that really I remember happening in is Mary Poppins, and she does that to the kids.
Oh, that's right. Have y'all done that one?
We have. That's one of my favorite ones.
Okay, that's my favorite too. I did an article on that for a magazine recently that just came out called Cultural Engineering Studies. You guys might like that. But it was all about Mary Poppins and P.L. Travers and mysticism, Gurdjieff, and theosophy and everything they were involved in.
There's a lot of like interesting imperialism nods in that movie. It's all about banking, right? The dad's a banker. He's like losing his job and he gets his job back and he's doing well. And the neighbor next door is a retired imperialist traveler. He's kind of like one of these Tarzan type guys that would go out into the jungle. And when they see him, he says that he's going to go and find some Hottentots, which also feels like maybe not a cool word that you can say in 2011. And speaking of the other the unintentional anti-woke thing is that Gribble, when he first meets the kid, he's like, honest engine. He's making some sort of a promise and he goes, honest engine. And I was just thinking, man, this might be you could pinpoint the exact moment in which Disney hits the peak of what they're willing to put into a dialogue and what people react to. Because after this one, again, I don't think there was someone in the writer's room that's like, I'm going to make this about the nuclear family and I'm going to put these offensive phrases. I just think that this was the last time that anyone could claim ignorance, because as soon as this movie came out, it met a lot of this kind of backlash for putting some of these themes being so central. And that's when maybe Disney was like, whoa, we didn't realize there was this whole market here. Let's lean into that. We could probably market to these people that are so outraged.
You using the word Hottentot, by the way, reminded me that I learned that word from the Bloom County comic strip written by the guy that wrote the story for this. So I guess that was a word he liked a lot. And so I'm guessing that's probably in the book. But then I was kind of thinking about how that story developed. In that comic strip, it eventually ends up mostly focusing Opus the Penguin, who is does not know his family or anything, right? And there's part where he goes looking for his mom. He needs mom, and goes to Antarctica, and it's just a bunch of penguins. He eventually finds his mom is being tested on the Mary Kay Cosmetics testing labs, and breaks her out or whatever. But and then there's all this kind of sentimental stuff and the Bloom County stuff, Opus hugging his mom and stuff. So I was just thinking that's definitely this vibe is this guy's vibe too. Maybe that's where it feels a little different from the general Disney vibe. It's because we're getting a lot of this specific creator's vibe, just like like with the Doug guy or something. Some of it comes through even after it's been Disney-fied.
There was another really weird one-liner, and I just couldn't figure out who it was for. It definitely wasn't for the kids. Was it for the moms? But the kid says something to the effect of, Mars needs Botox. And I just imagine they left a little gap there for like some snickers in the audience. But that was a joke just for the moms in the audience, I assume? It was so weird how it was shoehorned in. Because it's when they see, I think, the supervisor, and they see the supervisor's old wrinkly crone,
Right.
and the kid's like, "Oh, Mars need he knows that Mars needs mom, and he says Mars needs Botox."
That's he has to make the really up-to-date references, man, and Gribble makes the 80s references, and right. He makes the 60s and ones, right? So I kind of feel like that was someone that feels like writer's room. Like we want to code these characters to different eras, so he's got to talk about Botox.
Yeah, and that's definitely anti crone propaganda. Like women are somehow evil after a certain age, or undesirable, or they turn wicked if they have wrinkles.
Well, yeah, not necessarily. As long as they get Botox, then they don't become any of those
Right.
horrible things.
If you don't get older, then you'll stay virtuous forever.
I mean, the other solution here is Gribble. Gribble could have hooked up with the supervisor, and that also would have, purified her of being the old crone.
Sorry, I was just checking where Hollywood forgets about actresses once they hit 40. So I just looked at Joan Cusack's filmography, and that's generally what happens. Since this movie, she's done about 15 things. Before that, it goes on for like 50 things. So
yeah.
And a lot of what she does now is voice work. She does more voice work now. So yeah, she kind of had that occur, unfortunately, because they do Toy Story. They have to get it right. As she does. She's Jessie, the cowgirl who has nothing to do in 3 or 4, but whatever. They still need her voice.
Those are terrible anyway.
I'm looking forward to 3 the most.
I'm very looking forward to that.
Breakdown.
Because my daughter is exactly the age where I have seen 3 is the one I've seen the most, because I've seen it like 20 times, right? So
I saw that one in the theater. What was that?
Is that the one where they're being donated and they almost end up burnt?
Correct. Yeah, that's Toy Story 3.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that is the most insidious Disney movie that I've ever seen. More than Dick Castles, and more than sex in the sky and teaching lions to eat bugs, because it makes you. The whole premise of Toy Story 3 is that these toys have actual souls. They're talking to children now in the audience. Your toys have actual souls, and if you donate them or throw them out or let anything happen to your material possessions, like a soul is at risk here. Something is going to be lost from reality, and it's such a weird thing to put that on kids. Now you have to be responsible for every one of your G.I. Joe's souls, which is kind of a weird sort of weight to put onto a small child.
Teaser for next week. We'll extend that rant to 2 hours.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's so crazy. It reminds me of like Chucky too, in a way that you don't want your toys having consciousness of their own, because they could also be evil.
I'm just scanning through my notes, which I'm mostly just like, we get a titular line where I think Gribbler says Mars needs moms at some point.
Right. Again, it was a little bit shoehorned in, like where you hear, they said the name of the movie in the movie. I see what you're doing.
I'm still anti-broccoli. In my mid-30s, for 3 years, I was like, okay, I'll eat broccoli. In 3 years, I ate it, and then one day I was like, I really don't like this.
No, you're crazy. I love broccoli. I've always loved it.
I'm back off the broccoli train. I think they say there's like a gene that makes broccoli taste like a different way, or something. So that might be the issue I'm having, because
some people don't like cilantro, and some people
okay, I'm down with cilantro. I'll do that.
You know what? It tastes like soap to me, but I also like it. Is that weird?
Okay.
Like, it absolutely tastes like soap, but I like the way that it tastes like soap.
Okay.
When Milo loses his helmet, when it shatters, did y'all kind of like, just for a minute, just have Total Recall go through your mind, like his head was about to explode? I was just waiting for that to start happening.
Oh, his eyeballs to pop out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, fast and loose with the physics in this movie.
Oh yeah, because like even they do this in John Carter too. John Carter has superpowers because he's on Mars, and to a certain extent that works. But this kid takes 2 like massive drops into garbage, and I'm like, that even with the reduced gravity, that's gonna screw you up. You're gonna get your few shattered bones from that at the very least.
Well, what's interesting is that the Mars is not terraformed on the surface yet because they still live in these, airless. Well, they live under oxygen bubbles on the surface, but in the caverns they could breathe freely, and that was where the atmosphere, the natural atmosphere of Martians was supposed to be at, right? Was like underground.
Another Total Recall thing. The whole thing of that movie is let the crack open the underground chambers to release the oxygen, and in that case, terraform. So,
well, but also the little, I guess, portal on the surface of Mars that opens up, and then you go inside Mars, and now there's this livable atmosphere. I didn't even put that together. Yeah, I guess they don't need the helmets when they're under the surface, but the way that the surface, it opens up, and then when it closes, it kind of makes this seamless pattern where it looks like it's still just a barren Mars, which makes it seem like they're hiding from something. Like there's some sort of an external force that they're aware of. Maybe it's Earth, maybe it's the Space Force that are trying to come and get the moms back, and they're just avoiding anyone knowing where they're taking the moms to. But it's almost like the movie about the moon being hollow or being this big spaceship, right? Like it looks like this organic, natural thing. Organic, maybe not the right word, but like an actual thing versus some sort of a construct.
Was there at one strain? See, that's where I was a little disappointed that he was just BSing, because when he brought up Secret Space Force, because there's that whole line about
Secronauts, which is a cool name.
Great name. Where was it? They take you, if you're skilled at something, you go, you do it for 40 years, and then they like de-age you and erase your memory, and now you're just back where you started. And I was like, oh, maybe that's where they're going to go with Gribbler, but that's not where they went.
That's what they did to Reagan, actually.
Oh yeah, the Secronauts were supposed to stop communism throughout the galaxy, right?
Right. This is when he says that Mars is the red planet, and that's why he was there to fight communism of Mars.
I love that line of reasoning. That was great. I bought into that. We will have to also just check out like what kind of tropes, because we're doing those theme park live action ones, I think, later this year. So Mission to Mars is a direct Disney "Here's Our Trip to Mars." The real John Carpenter, he did Ghosts of Mars around that time as well.
Are you going to the theme park?
Well, probably, but no, we're going to it in podcast form, because there's like 5 or 6 movies that are like based on theme park rides. So
okay. Yeah, Tomorrowland is good.
Tomorrowland, yes. There's Eddie Murphy's Haunted Mansion, which isn't good. There's a newer Haunted Mansion. Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, now we think it was a big film franchise, but that was based on a ride, movie.
Did you ever play the NES game about, I think it was called just the Adventures in Magic Kingdom, where you go to each individual ride, and there's a Pirates of the Caribbean mini game, and there's a Space Mountain mini game, and all of like each major ride or each major attraction has its own little mini game, and you're like, I think you're Mickey going to all these places.
That sounds fun.
I think I did for 2 minutes, but I was already way too old, and it was boring. I was bored.
Yeah, this was back when, like, even if you were well off, you maybe had like 4 NES games, you know what I mean, in the catalog. So
oh yeah, and I did just go to the park, actually, because I was in Tokyo, and I just to follow up last week's Princess and the Frog. We did the Princess of the Frog, and then I rode Splash Mountain.
Nice. What did you all think of Snow White? Did you see that one?
I haven't put myself through it yet.
Oh, the live one.
The new one.
Oh, the new one. Okay, yeah. See, they came out 2 weeks ago, and these films, these live action ones, just like, oh yeah, Robert Zemeckis, who produced Mars Needs Moms, made a Pinocchio that's unwatchable. He directed that one too.
Interestingly enough, right? Mars Needs Moms is a better movie than the new Snow White, and the new Snow White is it is the most woke Disney movie in recent history, whereas this is the least woke movie in recent Disney history. And this one technically beat the most woke one. We're not going to debate over how much of a sliver of a piece of hair it beat it by, but it did seems like it beat it.
Well, let's talk about the Snow White ride I just rode, which is more like the original Florida version, where there's no music, atmospheric sounds. The witch just keeps jumping out and screaming at you the whole time. And when I got off, the people behind me who did speak English, I hear the 9-year-old kid go, why did we why did we waste our time on that? That was lame. And I was like, kid, you don't know what you just wrote. That was awesome. That's what it was. They do. It's not quite as terrifying. If anyone knows, the original Disney World Snow White ride was like shockingly terrifying because the witch would just jump out at you. It's screaming the whole time. Tokyo still does that. They don't put the witch out quite as fast. If you watch videos of the Florida, they're like, "Wah!" I
remember that. That was the only cool part about it, and it was like kind of at the beginning, I think.
So instead of like now she's like a little bit slower, but yeah. But it's still Gal Gadot now. Yeah, there was no Gal Gadot on the ride. They have not put it there yet. They do have 3 Johnny Depps on Pirates, and I think they would definitely rush as well.
Well, I just thought of a great idea that could pull Disney out of its slump. What if they made a Matterhorn live action movie like Pirates of the Caribbean with a Yeti and like National Treasure? Because those were good. Like even the sequel of National Treasure and all the Pirates movies were good. So if they made a good like snowy Himalayan adventure versus like, Yeti and some other mystical things, they probably could make money on that.
I need an honest answer on this. I need an honest answer on this because now when people suggest movies that have Nick Cage in them, and this has nothing to do with the quality of the movie, but I want to know crazy Nick Cage level. Is he at 0 or 10? Like, where is he in the National Treasure movies?
Oh, he's up there, 9 at least.
Oh, is that crazy National Treasure? Okay.
Not angry, but his like zeal for American history is off the charts.
Okay, there we go. I remember someone just recommended The Weatherman as being I watched American Beauty again for a podcast, and someone's like, "Oh, Weatherman is kind of like a version I like better." And I was like, "Oh, that's got Nick Cage," and I was like, You just recommend the movie, so he liked the quality. I was like, "Tell me the crazy level." That's why I need to know.
Well, there's 2 different versions of the crazy level because there's how crazy is Nick Cage being to the other people in the movie world, and how crazy is he being to an outside observer, like as an audience member. And I think that those 2 are slightly different rankings.
Okay, yeah, my platonic ideals for crazy Nick Cage is second half of Color Out of Space and all of Bad Lieutenant Port of Call, New Orleans.
What was the vampire movie? That to me, that's kind of peak crazy Nick Cage.
Vampire's Kiss. Vampire's Kiss, yeah.
Vampire's Kiss.
Oh, that one. Well, he just did one with with Renfield.
Oh yeah.
With Dracula.
That must be high on the crazy list.
He did a good creepy Dracula for sure.
You mentioned Snow White, and actually that's interesting because I saw a correlation to Mars Needs Mom and Snow White, because Snow White and Mars Needs Moms, I think, are the only 2 movies that I can remember where they put the damsel in distress in a glass coffin. That motif only ever existed also in the very original Snow White, right? They put her in this glass bubble and she needs to be rescued from it. And that's kind of what I was imagining, is that not only is this kid going through like a wild Oedipus sort of adventure to go and save mom from, being turned into other people's moms, but they also give the kid a VR headset of some kind, and it lets him relive being his mom, which has like a weird Ed Gein kind of vibe to it. Right?
He did a different way.
Mom.
I'm just saying that this could have been how Ed Gein started. We don't know if he got sent to Mars and had to save his mom, and that's where the fascination started.
Ed Gein's origins. No, well, they did that. Bates Motel. Okay.
Okay, Ed Gein ride at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Hey, they used to take you by the Psycho House on the tram tour at I think they still do in Hollywood.
They still do. We just did that last year.
Yeah, I believe Florida's got knocked down for the Hard Rock Cafe or something, or the Hard Rock Hotel, maybe. I don't know, one of those.
It was like a miniature, anyways. It was just made to look like, as you got closer to it, it still looked like it was in the distance, the one that you're talking about outside the Hard Rock, but it was like a tiny version of it.
Okay, well, I was 10 years old when we went to Universal, so as much as I do go to these Disney parks, and we have one in Japan, but it's in Osaka, so that's really not close, and then it doesn't look. I mean, I'm trying to have fun. It just I don't care as much. Anyone want to dig down a Martian man cave hole for any other points before we start concluding?
I just wanted to point out how many firsts I think are in this movie. Maybe if we went back and checked all of our notes, but since Snow White, first woman in a glass coffin, it's the first reference to Ronald Reagan, I think, by name in any other Disney movie. The first Disney movie where the threat of death by firing squad is very evident. The first Disney movie that seems to actively push a nuclear family narrative, when usually Disney kind of implies the opposite of that. I guess there's a lot of other firsts in this one. The Uncanny Valley, I would say, is probably the worst we've seen out of any Disney movie to this point, which is weird because Up came before this, right? And Up, since it had a cartoonish look to it, didn't fall into that same trap. Am I right about this, or this? Because this is 2011, right?
You're kind of half right. Keep in mind that the primary mover is Image Movers Digital, Zemeckis' company, and he's producing this movie. So this is in the same line as Polar Express and Christmas Carol and things. It is listing Disney as a production company, so I guess they had their hands in the pot somewhat, but it's not like it's not as pure. Well, I guess Up's not either though, because that was Pixar thinking they might be their own studio now. So.
Well, to tag on to that, first Disney movie to make a Botox joke, first Disney movie to imply dosing police officers with psychedelics, which is maybe one of the cooler parts. Yeah, and I think it's the very first one, like we mentioned, when we actually just see a baby pee on someone's face.
That was mine. I was like, first urination in a movie.
Was it a humiliation ritual?
I think so. And then I was like, is it the first cross-species relationship? But then I was like, I think Ariel would qualify as that. And Beauty and the Beast. So there's another theme that we're finding.
Fox and the Hound, what did they do? Lady and the Tramp, they were both dogs. That was fine. Okay, different.
Yeah. In this case, who's Beauty and who's Beast? Is Gribble Beast? Or is he Beast?
Good point.
9-year-old Seth Green's the Beast. I can't handle that. No cap. Oh yeah, do just have to mention that the voice of the supervisor was it Val Blucher in the Austin Power movies?
Oh, okay. I get that now.
Mindy Sterling, she's fun and she does a lot of voice work, so I was happy to see her there. But yeah, I guess this is maybe the last of the floundering movies, and they took the biggest hit on it money wise too. It is just kind of weird to see such straw grasping, and I wonder if this is the point where the execs were just like, "We can't make. You're trying as hard as you can to make the Star Wars, but you can't buy it." You know.
This is definitely not what boys want.
Right. They want real Star Wars. They don't want this. So, and John Carter approved it again next year. And like, this movie's not bad. Am I going to watch Mars Needs Moms again? Probably not. Will I watch John Carter again? A much better chance of that. So, I will
which movie did Disney nail for boys? Like, which was the one that they knocked it out of the park for both?
Marvel and Star Wars, basically.
Well, yeah, they bought their way in instead of creatively.
Right. Because even the actual Disney hits a few years later are going to be like, Frozen, Tangled, Moana, right? Zootopia, I guess, has a little bit of a.
Oh, well, we're not going to talk. That's for furries. That's not for.
Okay, that's for furries. So it's still not for boys. Okay, so Iron Man's for boys, but they got to buy it first.
I remember young boys liking Lion King a lot.
I could see that. But also the Jonathan Taylor Thomas thing, I think, was there to also get like the girl audience excited.
Yeah,
but they didn't learn from that, did they? Because when they started really trying to get that again, they did Treasure Planet, very cool movie. I don't remember what the story was at all. Atlantis, I think Atlantis is a great movie, but those were not successful movies either. They couldn't get the boys in for those.
Well, and the whole plot of Lion King is how to demasculate the king of the jungle. Like, how do we take the king of the jungle and make him eat bugs? That's the entire premise of that movie.
Well, if you watch the live action Lion King, it is very Skittles coded, let's say, because it's about taking him out of his element and going to live with an alternative community outside the boundaries, the couple. I mean, even the lyrics of the song, and I'm not making it up, they are alluding that Timon and Pumbaa are married.
That doesn't shock me too much.
Yeah.
So if they're married in the first one, that would be another interspecies relationship.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they might have just not told us in the first one, so. But also, that's the live action Lion King. I'm like, is it?
I mean, you mentioned emasculating Simba. So yeah, Simba goes to live with the alternative community, and they don't want him to go, but he has to return to his, patriarchal duty.
Okay, that's actually the first time I even considered, should I look at it? Because I just assumed it was the exact same thing, but it didn't look as fun.
This is different than Mustafa, which is another live action or like
Sequel.
CG real reality version of it. But right, is it a sequel to the Lion
It's
King?
a prequel, I believe, because Mufasa's dead. Sorry, spoiler.
Right. I haven't seen it, but yeah, it'd have to be a prequel if that's his story.
Yeah.
And just to throw this out there, Disney's been flirting with interspecial relationships for as long as they've been around, I think. I mean, the biggest one for me was always Sword in the Stone, where they just turn into animals to bang other animals and then turn back into humans and just mess with the minds of this squirrel that he just, encountered. And it's like, I'm a boy now, and the squirrel can't figure it out.
Although we're at an inflection point on Disney now that the tax breaks have gone and you don't get money for diversity stuff anymore, and Snow White seems to have been a turd in the pot. They could be a fascist night. We might be complaining about Disney stuff being a fascist nightmare in 3 years.
I'm telling you, Matterhorn the movie would be a hit if you got the right script and cast.
And if
Get
it's
Nicolas
a fascist
Cage.
nightmare.
National Treasure 3, Matterhorn.
I want to see a Disney Expendables where it's like all of the male, roles, and they have to do like an Expendables style, like super action packed kind of movie.
Some psychotic Mickey Mouse. Just when I thought they're coming back in.
And all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
And all American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.